20 years ago, an immigrant woman was falsely accused, stripped of her honor, and forced to raise her child in the shadows. 20 years later, that very daughter steps into the boxing ring, carrying her gloves and the truth that an entire empire tried to bury. When the bell rings, it is no longer just a sporting event, a clash between power and justice, lies and truth. And the final punch not only brings down a man, it shatters a circle of injustice that lasted for 2 decades. On the cobblestone streets of Barcelona's old Exemple district, the sunset fell across balconies draped with blazing red bougainvillea. The city was often celebrated for its architecture and music. Still, for Amina El-Sayeed, Barcelona was not a city of art, it was a place where dreams hung suspended between hope and injustice. Amina had come to Spain from Egypt at the age of 21. When she landed at El Prat airport, she clutched her passport as if holding her future. She believed that in Europe, a young woman could start anew, escape the poverty of her homeland, and earn money to send back to her family. But reality was far harsher. She could only find temporary jobs, cleaning hotel rooms, washing dishes in restaurants, scrubbing offices at midnight. She grew used to the smell of bleach, her cracked hands, and being called by mocking nicknames like La Extranjera, the foreign girl. But Amina never stopped hoping. She learned Spanish through the radio, jotting down every new word in a small notebook. She told herself, if I'm patient, the chance will come one day. And that chance arrived in a way she never expected. One morning, through an acquaintance's referral, she was invited for an interview at the villa of Victor Moretti, one of Barcelona's most renowned businessmen. He was the head of an international construction empire, a familiar face on television, the embodiment of success, power, and luxury. When Amina stepped into the vast mansion on the hill of Tibidabo, she felt as small as a grain of sand. Polished white marble floors gleamed under glittering chandeliers, and classical paintings lined the walls as if taken from a museum. "Are you Amina?" the head butler asked coldly. Amina nodded, offering a faint smile. In her simple dress and worn shoes, she looked like a shadow lost in a world of opulence. They asked her basic questions. Could she cook? Could she communicate in Spanish? Had she ever worked as a full-time maid? Amina answered honestly, her eyes bright as she declared she was ready to work hard. A week later, she received the call. Amina El-Sayeed had become the official housekeeper for the Moretti family. At first, though the work was grueling, Amina felt fortunate. She had a small room behind the kitchen, and her salary was enough to send a portion back to Egypt. More importantly, she sensed she was stepping into a new world where she could prove her worth. Victor Moretti, at 28, was already the symbol of success. Tall, dark-haired, with sharp eyes that turned disarmingly warm when he smiled, he carried an aura that drew people in. Despite his wealth and power, Victor was not entirely aloof. Once, when Amina's hands trembled while arranging wine glasses for a party, he stepped forward, steadied the glass, and said gently, "Don't be nervous, you're doing fine." In that moment, Amina felt her heart skip a beat. As time passed, their encounters grew more frequent. After long parties, when the guests had left, Victor would linger by the fireplace and invite Amina to share a cup of tea. They spoke of childhood, of dreams. He confessed that his father was a cold man who never acknowledged his achievements. He had built an empire only to prove his own worth. In Amina's sincerity and gentleness, Victor found a place where he could remove the mask of power. And in those late nights, affection smoldered into a forbidden flame. While Amina was clearing the table one rainy evening, Victor approached and gently took her hand. His eyes darkened, at once arrogant and vulnerable. Their first kiss happened beside the bookshelf, smoldering like embers in a fire. Amina knew it was wrong, but in her heart, love outweighed reason. She believed Victor truly cared for her, that he was different from other wealthy men. And when he whispered, "I'll take care of you, of us, of our family," she believed him. The news came unexpectedly. One morning, Amina stood in her tiny bathroom, staring at the pregnancy test in her hand, 2 red lines. Her heart raced, torn between fear and joy. She sat down, cradling her belly, and whispered, "Me child." That evening, she told Victor, At first, he was stunned. Then he smiled, embraced her, and said, "We'll manage. I love you." His promise made Amina believe they would overcome everything together. But a week later, her world collapsed. Victor came to her room, his face cold and distant. He handed her a check and said, "Amina, this has to end. I can't let the child exist. It will ruin everything." Amina froze. "What are you saying? This is our child." "You don't understand," Victor snapped. "The board already knows. If the baby is born, they won't spare me. Be realistic. Take the money, go home, and deal with it." Tears streamed down Amina's face. She clutched her stomach, shaking her head. "No, I won't kill my child." Victor's face darkened. "You'll regret this." 3 days later, the police knocked on Amina's door. They claimed to have found expensive jewelry in her drawer items she had never seen before. "You're under arrest for theft," they said coldly. Amina glanced out the hallway window in shock and saw Victor standing on the balcony above. He did not look down. 48 hours later, she was released for lack of evidence. But the newspapers had already run the headline, "Immigrant Maid steals from Moretti family." Her reputation was shattered. No one would hire her again. She became an outcast, homeless, unemployed, and pregnant. Amina fell into despair. But she did not break. She changed her surname to El-Sayeed, borrowing her family's old name, and moved to a working-class neighborhood on the outskirts of Barcelona. By day, she worked at a laundromat. By night, she cleaned offices. Each night, with aching hands and a sore back, she placed her palms on her belly and whispered, "You will grow. You will not carry this stigma. If one day you want to know who your father is, wait until you're strong enough. For now, I will protect you with everything I have." In the darkness of her damp rented room, Amina picked up her pen and wrote in a journal, preserving the truth in case her daughter one day needed it. She never imagined the journal would open the path to justice 20 years later. The old apartment in Barcelona's Raval district stood in a building with faded paint, rusted railings, and creaking wooden doors. For Layla El-Sayeed, it was not just her grandmother's home for many years. Still, the cradle of her childhood was filled with the smell of hastily cooked meals, old Arabic music drifting from the radio, and winter nights when she and her mother huddled under a blanket on a single bed. 3 days after her grandmother's funeral, Layla returned to the apartment to sort through her belongings. The silence was so deep she could hear her own heartbeat. Afternoon light filtered through the small window, casting a golden haze over the large portrait of her grandmother that hung on the living room wall. She reached to take the painting down for wrapping when she noticed a loose brick behind it. Curious, Layla pushed, and the brick shifted aside, revealing a rusty metal box hidden deep in the wall. Her pulse quickened. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside were no jewels like in fairy tales, but a stack of papers, some yellowed photographs, and a dark leather-bound journal. On its cover was a handwritten inscription, "Amina El-Sayeed, 2001. Layla froze. That was her mother's name. But in 2001, her mother would have been just in her 20s, and Layla herself had not been born. She opened the journal. The pages were yellowed, the blue ink slightly blurred. The first entry read, "Today I officially became a housekeeper for the Moretti family. The house is like a palace. Mr. Victor Moretti is younger than I imagined, 28, handsome, breathtakingly charismatic." Swallowing hard, Layla turned to the next page. The diary overflowed with descriptions of lavish parties and how Victor spoke to Amina as though she were the only person. The words radiated happiness, filled with dreams. "He listens when I talk about opening a little restaurant one day. When he holds me by the fireplace and says, 'I love you,' I believe a bright future awaits us." Layla paused, tears stinging her eyes. She had never seen her mother write about love before. In her memory, Amina was always strong and stern, rarely mentioning men. She flipped faster until she reached a passage that made her blood run cold. "I am pregnant. Victor said he would take care of everything. But a week later, he changed. He offered me money and told me to get rid of it. When I refused, he threatened that his career would collapse. Today, the police came. They found expensive jewelry in my room, arrested me. The newspapers call me a thieving maid. Victor stood on the balcony above, but never came down. Layla collapsed onto the floor, hands shaking so hard the journal slipped from her grip. She gathered the photographs scattered in the box. One showed a young Victor with his arm around Amina, smiling radiantly. Another captured the grandeur of the Moretti mansion, and inside a small envelope her birth certificate. Mother, Amina El-Sayeed. Father, Victor Moretti. Layla's mouth fell open. Victor Moretti was her biological father, who appeared on television every week, celebrated as the king of construction, and was honored for his philanthropic boxing matches. The room spun. Memories from childhood rushed back. Nights when her mother worked herself to exhaustion, Layla asked, "Where's my father?" And her mother only gave a sad smile. "He's gone, my child." Lies. All of it lies. Layla buried her face in her hands and wept. Inside her churned a storm of pain, fury, and a bitterness she had never known. For hours, she sat and read the final, shaky entries of the diary. "They have destroyed my honor. I will change my name and move to Raval. If my daughter ever wants to know the truth, let her discover it when she is strong enough. I cannot let her carry the burden of hatred too soon." Layla closed the journal, pressing it against her chest to keep her heart from shattering. She whispered, "I am strong enough now, Mother, and I will do what you could not." That night, she did not return home immediately. She wandered through Barcelona's neon-lit streets, her mind spinning. Flamenco music drifted from a bar. Laughter and chatter filled the air. The world outside carried on, while hers had just collapsed. She stopped before a giant screen in the plaza, broadcasting the evening news about Victor Moretti. He appeared in an elegant suit, smiling, presenting a new real estate project. The report highlighted him as an amateur boxing champion. A hero of charity fights for poor children. Layla clenched her teeth. Poor children. She was one of them, his own daughter, unacknowledged. How many times had he raised his fists in the ring to win applause, while in truth, he had crushed her mother with cowardly betrayal? No, she could not remain silent. Back at the small apartment she shared with her mother, Layla returned all the documents to the metal box except for the journal she kept. She was not yet ready to confront Amina. Her mother had lived 20 years in silence to protect her, but Layla knew that silence was also a chain. Lying in bed, she opened her laptop. She searched for every article, video, and record about Victor Moretti. Every smiling photograph of him on camera made her blood boil. One article caught her eye. Victor Moretti, the undefeated champion of charity boxing. The accompanying photo showed him standing in the ring, gloves raised high, as the crowd roared. Layla felt her body tremble. Boxing, the ring, a place where money, lawyers, and media could not protect him. Only one rule mattered: the stronger fighter wins. A wild, almost insane thought flared in her mind. If she could enter the ring and face Victor directly, the thought consumed her like fire. Layla watched her mother quietly serving a simple couscous meal the following evening at dinner. Amina asked, "What's wrong, my dear? You seem different." Layla swallowed hard, ready to confess everything, but stopped. Looking at her mother's weary face, lined with years of toil, she couldn't. "It's nothing, Mom. I'm just a little tired." Amina gave a sad smile, stroking her daughter's hair. "Life is unfair, Layla. But sometimes justice comes from living with kindness, not from revenge." Layla forced a smile, but deep inside she whispered, "No, Mother. This time, justice must come from my fists." That night, she opened the journal again. She read the final line repeatedly. "If my daughter is strong enough, she will know the truth." Layla shut the book and stared into the mirror. Her dark eyes burned with new resolve. "I am strong enough now, Mother," she whispered, "and I won't let him live in peace another day." Barcelona at night was always dazzling. On Las Ramblas, neon lights flickered as tourists gathered around street artists painting with sand or playing saxophone. But among the noisy crowd, Layla El-Sayeed padded like a shadow. In her mind, only one name echoed: Victor Moretti. Since reading the journal, Layla had become someone else. At university, She sat in class with her thoughts adrift. At the cafe where she worked part-time, her hands shook as she poured coffee for customers. Everything in her life had turned pale and meaningless, except for the fire of rage. Every time she turned on the TV, Victor's face appeared again, inaugurating a new project, shaking hands with politicians, smiling among orphans at charity events. The screen overflowed with false glory. All Layla saw was a liar, a man who had dragged her mother to the bottom, then basked in fame without remorse. One night, she watched a video of Victor's latest boxing match in her room. They called him the Iron Fist of Catalonia. He stood in the ring, red gloves blazing, knocking out his opponent within 3 rounds to a roar of cheers. But Layla saw no heroism, only arrogance. And an opportunity. In the ring, Victor could not buy referees with money. He could not smear anyone with the press. There, only fists and endurance mattered. And that would be the place where Layla would bring him down. The next day, Layla went to a small boxing gym tucked into an alley near the old industrial zone. Dusty glass doors, a handful of bulky men pounding on torn punching bags inside. The old coach looked her up and down, frowning. "What are you looking for here?" "Boxing," Layla said curtly. He gave a dry laugh. "This isn't an aerobics class, girl. People here train to fight for real. Think you can handle it?" Layla clenched her fists. "I didn't come to play. I came to learn how to take someone down." The coach caught the steel in her eyes, surprised. After a pause, he tossed her a pair of worn gloves. "Fine. Let's see how long you last." The first exercise was just jump rope. Yet after 5 minutes, sweat streamed down her face, her lungs burning as if on fire. She collapsed, gasping, while the men smirked. "Go home, girl," one jeered. Gritting her teeth, Layla stood up and kept going. Every time the rope slapped painfully against her legs, she remembered her mother, Amina, dragging herself home after night shifts, her hands rough with calluses. Layla told herself, "I cannot fall." That night, she limped home with swollen legs and aching shoulders, barely able to lift a glass of water. Amina noticed, alarmed. "What happened? You look like you've been in a fight." Layla hid it. "Just exercising, Mom." Amina sighed, rubbing ointment on her daughter's shoulder, worry in her eyes. Layla turned away, afraid her mother would see the fury blazing in her own. Layla learned to stand, jab, and breathe through punches in the following weeks. Each evening after her cafe shift, she trained late into the night. Her body ached, but her mind had never been sharper. With every strike at the heavy bag, she pictured Victor's face. With every gasp for air, she remembered her mother's silent tears, and she kept going. A month later, she lasted longer than anyone expected. The old coach began to look at her differently. "You've got a fighter's spirit," he admitted. "But boxing isn't just strength. You need technique, strategy." Layla wiped the sweat from her face, eyes blazing. "Then teach me. I'll learn." One night, she stumbled across a sports broadcast, an upcoming international charity tournament at Palau Sant Jordi in Barcelona. And as always, Victor Moretti would be there. He declared he was ready to face any challenger worthy of stepping into the ring. Layla froze before the screen. This was the chance she had been waiting for. But she knew. A few months of rough training were not enough. If she wanted to defeat Victor, she needed more an elite coach and a proper training ground. The next day, she walked into La Furia Boxing Academy, the most renowned training center in Barcelona, home to champions. The iron doors opened to a wave of sweat and leather. The thud of gloves against bags, the rhythm of grunts and shuffling feet filled the air. Photos of champions with Helena Dimitrov, the legendary Eastern European trainer, hung on the walls. In her 60s now, she stood tall, her gaze as sharp as steel. From across the gym, Helena eyed Layla with a slight smirk. "What do you want?" "To learn," Layla replied. Helena crossed her arms, scrutinizing. "Boxing isn't a game. It demands blood, sweat, and tears. What are you willing to pay?" Layla swallowed hard. "Everything. My whole life if I have to." For the first time, Helena's brow lifted. "You sound like someone carrying a grudge." Layla stayed silent. She couldn't reveal the truth, not yet. After a beat, Helena shouted. "Diego! Over here!" From the far end of the gym, a man approached. About 26, tall and lean with a sculpted build, long black hair brushing his shoulders, and amber eyes that glowed under the lights. A faint scar on his cheek hinted at countless brutal fights. "This is Diego Alvarez," Helena introduced. "Former pro fighter. From now on he'll test whether you're serious." Diego looked at Layla, expression unreadable. "What makes you worth my time?" Layla met his gaze, steady. "I don't want to learn to win a game. I want to learn to take down a powerful man the world thinks untouchable." For a moment, the noisy gym seemed to fall silent. Helena narrowed her eyes, while Diego's lips curved into a half smile, half intrigued, half challenging. "All right," he said. "I'll train you. But remember, boxing doesn't forgive weakness. Quit halfway, and I'll never look at you again." Layla nodded, voice firm. "I won't quit." Back at the apartment that night, Layla stood before the mirror, fists clenched like a vow. Every turn in her life had led her to this decision. She was no longer the quiet girl living in the shadow of secrets. From now on, she was a warrior. And one day, in the ring at Palau Sant Jordi, she would stare into Victor Moretti's eyes and make him know. The daughter he had denied for 20 years had returned not to claim a father, but to claim justice with her fists. La Furia was unlike any gym Layla had ever seen. It was part cathedral, part battlefield. The air was thick with the smell of leather, sweat, and dried blood. Punches pounding heavy bags echoed like war drums. Footsteps drummed against the floor like a heartbeat before battle. On her first day, Helena Dimitrov led Layla to the center of the ring, her eyes sharp as blades. "Rule number 1. Forget everything you think you know. Here, you start from 0. Rule number 2. There is no room for arrogance or laziness. I've seen talented fighters fall because they lacked discipline. Final rule. Every drop of sweat that hits this floor must be worth it. Do you understand?" Layla nodded, heart racing. Helena signaled to Diego. He stepped forward, tossing her a jump rope. "Start." Layla had jumped rope at her old gym, but every movement felt heavier under Helena and Diego's piercing stares. The rope snapped against her shins, stinging. She gritted her teeth and kept going. After 10 minutes, her lungs burned, and sweat poured in streams. "That's just the warm-up," Diego said flatly. The next day, Layla learned stance. Diego corrected every detail: the width of her feet, the bend of her knees, the position of her shoulders. "Your body is the foundation," he explained, lightly guiding her hip into place. "If the foundation isn't stable, the whole house collapses." Layla flushed at the closeness, but his eyes stayed fixed on the technique. He didn't look at her as a woman, only as a trainee to be forged. The realization brought her both relief and a strange disappointment. She was allowed nothing but footwork, breathing, and jabs. No power shots for 3 weeks. No knockouts. Impatience gnawed at her. "Even a child can throw a hard punch," Helena barked when Layla complained. "A true fighter waits for the right moment. You want revenge? Then learn patience first." After the first month, Layla felt her body changing. Her shoulders hardened, her core tightened, her breathing steadier. But the pain was relentless. Calves on fire, wrists swollen, knuckles raw from endless drills. Once, she collapsed on the floor in exhaustion. Diego stood over her, unsympathetic. "Get up. In the ring, no one pauses the fight for your rest." Tears streamed down her face as she forced herself to rise. Through the blur, she caught a flicker of respect in Diego's eyes, before he quickly turned away. Diego set her up for a sparring match against a male trainee one evening. Layla trembled as she stepped into the ring. He towered a head above her, muscles rippling. The bell rang. He charged. Layla flailed wild punches, only to take a brutal hook to the ribs. She crumpled, gasping. Diego stepped closer. "You think boxing is throwing bricks? You're not using your head, only swinging arms. Get up." Again. Flushed and shaking, Layla stood. She remembered the lessons this time. Control her breath. Keep distance. Wait. She slipped left when her opponent lunged again and fired a quick jab. Her glove smacked his face. A small cheer rose from a few watching trainees. Layla's chest blazed with fire. She hadn't won but felt her true power for the first time. That night, she stayed late to keep pounding the bag, sweat soaking her clothes. Diego appeared, leaning against a post, watching. "You've got fire," he said. "But fire can burn itself out if it's not controlled." Layla, panting, met his eyes. "You think I can't handle it?" He stepped closer, placing a hand on the bag, his gaze sharp, but not as harsh as usual. "I think you have a reason to fight. But what is it? If it's only hate, it will destroy you. The ring doesn't care about your story. It only cares whether you fall or not." Layla stayed silent. She couldn't tell him not yet, but in Diego's eyes, she glimpsed something beneath the coldness. Concern. Helena was no easier. One day, she summoned Layla to her office. The walls were covered with photos of former students, some champions, others who had quit. "You think you're different from them?" Helena asked. Layla nodded. "Because I'm not just fighting for myself. I'm fighting for my mother, for the justice she never had." Helena's stare pierced deep. Then, finally, she gave a curt nod. "Fine. But remember, the ring doesn't care about reasons. It only demands strength. If you want to survive, you must become the strongest." The following months were pure crucible. Running 10 kilometers each morning up Barcelona's steep hills, throwing thousands of punches until her wrists swelled, training reflexes by dodging a swinging ball for hours, sparring against multiple opponents, taking hits, bleeding, but growing tougher each time. Every fall brought back the image of Amina in handcuffs, dragged from the Moretti mansion, and every time, Layla forced herself back up. One night, when the gym was empty, only she and Diego remained. He adjusted her stance, brushing her hip to align her center of gravity. The closeness unsettled her. She caught the faint mix of sweat and cologne. Her heart raced. She pulled back quickly, hiding it. Diego raised an eyebrow but said nothing. From that night on, Layla realized that her fight was not only for justice. Part of her heart was stirring for the hard-edged man who pushed her beyond her limits. 6 months passed. Layla was no longer the frail girl who had first entered La Furia. Her body was steel, her gaze unyielding. She floored a male opponent with a flawless left hook in her final spar before the holiday break. Helena clapped her shoulder, voice low. "You're starting to look like a fighter." Diego only smiled faintly, but in his eyes, Layla saw belief. That evening at home, Amina studied her daughter, sensing the change. "Layla, you're hiding something from me, right?" Layla held her breath, then smiled softly. "Mother, I'm learning to fight, and one day you'll see me stand at the top." Amina shook her head, not fully understanding, but in her eyes flickered both worry and pride. That night, Layla stood on the balcony of their small apartment, gazing toward the distance where the Moretti mansion still glowed with light. "I'm coming, Father," she whispered, "and this time, you won't be able to deny me." Early summer in Barcelona blazed down on red rooftops and narrow alleys. The city buzzed with tourists. But for Layla El-Sayeed, those days meant nothing except training routines and the alarm clock ringing at 5 a.m. She began each morning running along Barceloneta beach. Waves crashed, salt air stung her lungs, but she never stopped to enjoy the view. Breath ragged, heart hammering, each stride hammered willpower into her body. With every lap, she whispered to herself, "Victor Moretti, Victor Moretti, Victor Moretti." After finishing her morning shift at the small café near Plaza de Catalunya, Layla rushed straight to La Furia Academy. All day she served customers, wiped tables, washed glasses, saving just enough to cover training fees and help her mother. But once she left the cafe, she became someone else, a warrior forging herself in fire. Helena Dimitrov grew harsher. "Layla, you're still too slow. 1 second of hesitation in the ring, and you're finished." Her bark was like a whip. Layla hurled herself into speed drills, rapid, fire punches at the reflex bag, eyes locked on the bouncing rubber ball. Her knuckles bled, but she never stopped. Diego Alvarez was different. He rarely shouted, but every correction landed sharp as a blade. Elbow too low, Again. Don't tilt your head, you're wide open on the right. Breathe. Boxing is rhythm, not just fists. Sometimes, Layla snapped. You nitpick everything. I'm not a machine. Diego folded his arms, eyes hard. In the ring, every inch decides between standing tall and hitting the floor. Do you want revenge, or do you want to die? The question shut her up. For 3 straight months, Layla had no days off. Her body bloomed with bruises, yet her strength exploded with every week. During a spar against a fighter 15 kilos heavier, she slipped a hook, countered with a sharp jab, then landed a clean left hook. Her opponent staggered and went down. The gym erupted. Helena nodded approval. Diego allowed a brief smile. That night, exhausted on the bench, Layla accepted a water bottle from him. Good, he said. Very good. She panted, lifting her head. Was that a compliment? Rare from you. Diego chuckled softly, warmth flashing through. Don't let it get to your head. You've still got a long road ahead. But Layla wasn't always strong. Some nights after cafe shifts, she fell asleep on the bus from exhaustion. At home, Amina fretted. You're destroying yourself, Layla. I'm fine, Mom. Fine. Your skin and bones, covered in bruises. Tell me the truth, what are you doing? Layla clenched her fists, ready to spill the secret. But her mother's worried eyes sealed her lips. I just want to get stronger. Amina sighed, asking no more. But later that night, Layla pretended to sleep and heard her mother whispering, God, keep my daughter from dangerous paths. One rainy evening, Layla arrived at the gym early. Only Diego was there, hammering the heavy bag with blows so fierce it shuddered violently. Under the light, a scar along his temple glistened. You've been badly hurt before, haven't you? She asked softly. Diego stopped, wiped sweat from his brow, his eyes darkening. Yes, a fight in Mexico. One punch nearly blinded me. The doctors said if I kept going, I could lose my sight forever. That was the end of my career. Layla stood in silence, glimpsing the buried pain in him. Then why stay here? She asked. Diego met her gaze, amber eyes burning. Because I want to see someone else reach what I couldn't. Maybe because I see the same fire I once had in you. Layla's chest tightened. She turned away, afraid he'd read her feelings. Their bond grew in silence. When Diego corrected her stance, his hand steady on her shoulder, her pulse quickened. When they sparred, breath mingling in rhythm, she felt a strange connection spark between them. One late night, they sat together on the gym steps, rain pattering outside. Layla whispered, Do you ever think boxing isn't just fighting? That it's a way to find justice for people with no voice? Diego studied her, eyes deep. What are you carrying on your shoulders, Layla? The question crushed her chest. She knew she couldn't keep the secret forever. She opened her mother's journal again, that night in her small room. The trembling handwriting told of betrayal, of a denied pregnancy, of the shame of being framed as a thief. Layla traced each word with trembling fingers, tears blurring the page. Was it time to confess? Would Diego believe her, or walk away? But she remembered his steady gaze, his words, I see the fire in your eyes. And she knew. Diego deserved the truth. The next day, after a sweat-soaked session, Layla pulled him aside. Her heart pounded. Diego, I need to tell you something. If you decide not to train me anymore, I'll understand. His brow furrowed. Say it. Layla drew a deep breath. The man I want to defeat, he isn't just any opponent. It's Victor Moretti. Diego froze. Him? The businessman? The charity boxer? You mean to face him? Layla nodded, eyes blazing. He isn't just a target. He's my father, the man who destroyed my mother's life and denied mine. Silence thickened. Diego stared, shock flickering. Then something else understanding. God, he whispered. Now I see why you fight like this. Layla bit her lip. If you want to stop, I understand. Diego stepped closer, voice firm. No, I'll help you. Not just for revenge, but to make him see the truth. You won't be alone. Layla lifted her eyes, tears shining. In that moment, Diego was no longer just her trainer. He was her ally, her anchor. Back at home, Layla stood by the window that night, watching rain fall. Her heart felt both heavy and light-heavy with the peril ahead, light with the knowledge she was no longer alone. She whispered, "Mother, I found someone to walk this path with me. I promise you justice will come." The news broke on a sweltering June morning. Layla had just finished her cafe shift, clothes reeking of espresso and sweat, when the giant screen at Plaza de Catalunya lit up with bold letters. Titans of Industry, Palau Sant Jordi, Barcelona. Victor Moretti to defend his honor in the ring. Any qualified challenger may enter. The crowd stopped, staring. Reporters buzzed with excitement. This will be the most spectacular charity event of the year. Victor Moretti, an icon of success and strength, has accepted all challenges. The winner will not only earn a prize but also global recognition. Layla froze, her heart pounding like war drums. This was it. Fate's door had opened. That afternoon at La Furia, Layla threw her gloves to the floor, voice trembling with excitement. "Diego, this is it. The chance I've been waiting for." Diego wiped sweat from his brow, amber eyes fixed on her. "You want to register?" "Not want to. I will." He studied her for a long moment. "Do you realize what this means? This isn't sparring in the gym. This is a global stage, millions watching live. If you lose, you won't just fall before him. The whole world will laugh at you." Layla drew a deep breath. "I don't care. I'm not fighting for applause. I'm fighting so he sees me, so the world knows what he did to my mother." Diego stayed silent, then nodded. "All right. But we'll prepare harder than ever before. 6 weeks each day will be hell." "Hell is nothing compared to what my mother endured," Layla answered. When Helena Dimitrov heard, she only smirked. "So it comes at last. I knew you weren't training to get fit. You wanted war. Fine. La Furia will forge you into a weapon." Layla bowed her head in gratitude. Inside, she knew she had stepped onto a path with no return. Layla opened her laptop in their small apartment that night and filled out the official application form. One mandatory field, fighter name. She paused, then typed, "The Ghost." The name carried everything. The ghost of the past, the denied daughter, the spirit returned to demand justice. Diego, sitting beside her, nodded. "Fitting. You'll be the unseen fighter who rises from nowhere to crush the man everyone thinks is untouchable." Together, they submitted it. The screen flashed. Application submitted. Layla's heartbeat thundered as though the fight had already begun. The next day, an email arrived. "Congratulations. The Ghost has been accepted into Titans of Industry. The fight will take place in 6 weeks at Palau Sant Jordi." Layla read the line over and over, hands trembling. 6 weeks. The countdown had begun. Diego's voice was firm. "From today, no more general training. Every session will target one goal, defeating Victor Moretti." The plan launched immediately. Diego reviewed dozens of Victor's fights, analyzing every jab, slip, and habit. Helena set a strict diet: boiled chicken, greens, oats. Layla longed for pizza and sweets, but clenched her teeth through it. Mornings, sprints for endurance. Afternoons, reflex training. Nights, sparring against bigger opponents. Layla's body screamed in pain, but her will hardened into steel. One night, after a 14-hour training day, she collapsed on the mat, soaked in sweat. Diego sat beside her. "Do you even know how crazy you are?" he asked, half scolding, half admiring. Layla gasped, managing a faint smile. Crazy is what it takes to bring down a man like Victor Moretti. Diego studied her, eyes softening. "I believe in you, but I'm afraid too." "Afraid of what?" "That you'll burn yourself up just to win." Layla turned to him, gaze steady. "If I burn, I'll burn for my mother." There's no turning back. For a heartbeat, their eyes locked, something rising beyond trainer and student, beyond boxing itself. Then Diego looked away, restraining himself. "Fine. Tomorrow we start training against southpaws." Layla smirked. She knew he had just pulled them back from crossing a dangerous line. News of the event spread across Barcelona. The press buzzed with speculation about the mysterious ghost. Who was it? A rising prodigy? A sponsored underdog? Victor Moretti appeared on TV, scoffing. The ghost? Ridiculous. I've beaten real champions. A ghost will vanish with a single punch. Layla watched the screen, lips pressed tight. She imagined the moment she would pull back her hood in the ring and lock eyes with him. This ghost is your daughter, and she has come to end your lies. Amina noticed her daughter returning late at home, with a gaunt body and a hollow face. Layla, what are you doing? You're changing into someone I barely recognize. Don't carry a burden that isn't yours. Layla clenched her fists, wanting to confess. Instead, she hugged her mother. Mom, sometimes I need to be strong for both of us. Trust me. Amina's eyes brimmed with both love and fear. She didn't know what storm was coming, only that her daughter was walking into danger. At the gym, Helena pinned a massive poster of Victor Moretti on the wall. Each session, Layla had to stare at it. Remember, Helena said, he's not just an opponent. He is in power. He is lying. If you beat him, you won't just win a fight, you'll shake the whole system that believes money can bury truth. Layla's eyes blazed. I'll beat him. Not just for my mother, but for everyone who has ever been crushed. Diego tightened his gloves, nodding. And I'll be right there when you do. At the end of the month, Layla stood on the balcony, gazing over Barcelona's glowing skyline. Flamenco music drifted from a nearby bar, but all she heard was her heartbeat. 6 weeks. 6 weeks to turn herself into a weapon. She closed her eyes, whispering, I swear, Mother, I'll bring the truth into the light. I'll turn pain into strength, and when he falls, it will be our victory. News of the ghost swept across Spain like a storm. Sports headlines screamed, who is the unknown challenger daring to face Victor Moretti? The ghost. Rising phenomenon or publicity stunt? On television, commentators tossed around theories. A young hidden talent, a veteran making a comeback, a PR trick by the organizers themselves. The more mysterious it became, the more the public buzzed with curiosity. Meanwhile, inside the dim glass-walled office of the Moretti Corporation, Marcus Varga sat opposite Victor. Tall and lean, dressed in a black suit that seemed to swallow light, Marcus was Victor's right-hand man. Once a police officer, now a fixer, a man who handled dirty work. Victor's voice was ice. I don't like surprises. Find out who this ghost island. I won't let some nobody stain my honor. Marcus smirked. You know my talent. Give me time, and I'll drag him out of the shadows. In the days that followed, Layla sensed something was wrong. Leaving the gym, she noticed a black car parked nearby too often. During her morning runs, she caught sight of a figure trailing her in the distance. One evening, returning home, she found an envelope slipped under the door. Inside was a single note. Stop before it's too late. Layla trembled, but fear quickly hardened into rage. She brought the note to the gym and shoved it into Diego's hand. His jaw tightened, amber eyes flashing with danger. This is a warning. Victor's already moving his pieces. Helena only scoffed. Moretti hasn't changed. 20 years ago, he framed a poor girl. Now he tries the same filthy tricks to scare off challengers. But this time, it won't be so easy. One night, as Layla left the gym, Marcus himself stood waiting. Tall, face cold, eyes like blades. Miss El-Sayeed, he said, voice low and gravelly, making her skin crawl. Or should I call you the ghost? Layla clenched her bag, steadying her breath. Who are you? The man who can save you from disaster. Marcus pulled a blank check from his jacket pocket. 1 million euros. Enough for you to vanish and live in comfort forever. All you have to do is withdraw. Layla looked at the check, then straight into his eyes. 1 million can't buy justice. I won't disappear. Marcus's gaze darkened. You should understand this isn't just a game. You're not just fighting Victor. You're fighting an empire. Think of your mother. She suffered enough. Do you want her to suffer more? Layla's heart wrenched. He knew about her mother. Lay a hand on my mother, she hissed, and I'll make sure the whole world sees how afraid your boss really island. Marcus raised an eyebrow, amused by her defiance. Bold. But boldness won't save loved ones. I'll give you a week to reconsider. With that, he vanished into the night. Layla shook all the way home. She clung to her mother tightly. But Amina, who had lived in fear for 20 years, instantly sensed the truth. Daughter, what is it? Nothing, Mom. I'll protect you. Amina gripped her hand. Layla, don't let hatred take everything from you. I've lived in darkness for too long, but at least I still have you. I don't want to lose you too. Tears streamed down Layla's face, yet inside, her resolve only burned brighter. Because of her mother, she had to fight. Diego's fury exploded when she told him. He slammed his fist into the wall, eyes blazing. He dared to threaten your mother? If Marcus Varga comes near again, I'll deal with him myself. Layla grabbed his arm. Diego, I don't want you dragged into this. The only way to end it is for me to defeat Victor in the ring. When the light exposes the truth, his shadows will vanish. Diego's eyes softened. You're right, but from now on, I won't leave your side. The pressure mounted. One night, the cafe where Layla worked was hit with a sudden inspection. Her boss was fined heavily and advised Layla to quit before more trouble came. Helena's phone received an anonymous message. Stop training the challenger, or your academy will be shut down. Strangers lingered around Amina's neighborhood, forcing her to live in fear. Victor's shadow grew, yet Layla's fire burned fiercer instead of breaking. One late night, Layla trained alone, punching the heavy bag until her knuckles bled. Diego stepped in and grabbed her hands. Enough. Don't destroy yourself like this. Layla gasped for breath, tears spilling. You don't understand, Diego. He's threatening my mother. He wants me to vanish, but if I vanish, he wins again. I can't let that happen. Diego lifted her chin gently, his gaze firm yet tender. I understand more than you think, and I promise whatever happens, I'll protect you and your mother. We're not just a fighter and trainer anymore. We're allies. He hesitated, then whispered, we belong to each other. Layla froze, her heart pounding. In his amber eyes, she saw absolute sincerity. No more words were needed. She nodded, and they embraced in silence, surrounded by the smell of sweat and blood. Outside, Marcus Varga continued to weave his traps, but Layla no longer trembled. She knew the shadows might close in, but the light of truth drew closer. 5 weeks remained until she stepped into the ring, and when that moment came, no threat in the world could stop justice. That night, Palau Sant Jordi blazed like a festival. The great dome on Montjuic glowed under floodlights as tens of thousands of spectators roared excitedly. Newspapers, television, and social media revolved around a match. Victor Moretti versus the mysterious fighter known only as the Ghost. Outside, limousines lined the street. The elite, clad in tuxedos and glittering gowns, clinked champagne glasses and excitedly gossiped. Someone laughed loudly. Just a sideshow. Somebody is craving fame. Victor will end it in one round. Layla sat in the locker room, hooded in a black robe that veiled her face. Her heart hammered in her chest, but her eyes blazed with fire. Before her lay crimson gloves, the symbol of survival. Diego gripped her shoulder. Are you ready? Layla drew a deep breath. I've been ready my whole life. Helena entered, voice low and sharp. Remember what I told you. Don't rush. Victor will try to finish fast. Be patient. Let him tire. When the moment comes, strike like lightning. Layla nodded. She felt her mother's blood pulsing in her veins. All the years of hardship, all the nights Amina wept in silence, now they lived inside her fists. The arena announcer's voice thundered. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ghost. Music erupted. The crowd turned toward the tunnel as Layla emerged, her figure strong beneath the black robe. Cheers and jeers collided in a wave of noise. Curiosity filled the air. Ghost, Ghost, Ghost. A group of young fans chanted. She climbed into the ring step by step, the spotlight burning on the hood that hid her face. Her heart pounded wildly, but her stride was steady. Then came the announcement, and his opponent, the man of prestige, the undefeated champion, Victor Moretti. Music exploded. Victor entered in red trunks embroidered with gold, head held high like a king. He waved to the roaring crowd, arrogance etched in his smile. Thousands screamed his name. Stepping into the ring, he looked Layla over and scoffed. This is the challenger, a shadow afraid to show its face. Layla stayed silent, head bowed, eyes blazing under the hood. The referee called them to the center. You know the rules. Clean fight. Fair fight. Touch gloves. Victor extended his glove lazily. Let's see if you can last a minute. Layla tapped her gloves, her gaze piercing through the shadow of her hood. How long would he last once the truth was revealed? The bell rang. Round 1 began. Victor stormed forward, jabbing furiously. He wanted a quick knockout to prove dominance. Layla slipped and dodged, retreating, refusing to strike. She observed. The crowd murmured, "This ghost only knows how to run. Boring." Victor will crush him. But Diego's voice cut through the noise. "Patience. Wait for your chance." Layla steadied her breath. When Victor lunged with a heavy right hook, she slipped inside by inches and fired a quick jab into his cheek. The crowd gasped. Victor froze, startled. Round 2. Victor attacked again, but Layla had read his habits, and each time he prepared to throw, his right shoulder dipped slightly. She exploited it, slipping, countering. A left hook snapped against his jaw. Blood trickled from his lip. The crowd erupted, some now chanting for the ghost. Victor snarled, fury twisting his face. "You'll pay for disgracing me in front of the world." Layla didn't answer. Every punch was her reply. Rounds 3, 4, 5. The momentum shifted. Victor, used to crushing opponents quickly, began to tire. Layla grew sharper with each exchange jab slicing like blades, footwork dancing with precision. "Incredible!" the commentator shouted on live broadcast. "This mysterious fighter is driving Victor Moretti back. For the first time, we see him overwhelmed." The arena shook with chants. "Ghost, ghost, ghost." Round 7. Victor unleashed a brutal uppercut that slammed into Layla's chest, knocking her backward. She stumbled, vision spinning. "Get up, Layla!" Diego roared from her corner. "For your mother!" In that flash, she saw Amina handcuffed before the world, eyes filled with despair. Her heart ignited. Layla surged back to her feet, glaring into Victor's eyes. "You can't break me," she whispered through her mouthguard. Victor frowned for the first time, uncertain. Rounds 8 and 9. Layla dominated. Each strike was precise, driving Victor against the ropes. Blood streaked his face, breath ragged. The crowd thundered, "Ghost! Ghost! Finish it!" Diego screamed. "Now's your moment." Round 10. The final bell rang. Layla launched forward, unleashing a flawless combination jab, hook, uppercut. Victor staggered, dazed, and collapsed to the canvas. The arena erupted. The referee's count rang out. 1, 2, 3. At 8, Victor clawed to his feet, face a bloody mask, eyes wide with fear. For the first time, he looked beaten. Layla stood tall before him, gasping for breath, but her eyes blazed brighter than ever. This was no longer boxing. This was justice delivered by fists. The final bell rang. The fight was over. The arena exploded into chaos. "The ghost has made history," the commentator cried. "Victor Moretti is defeated." Layla stood in the center of the ring, arms raised, gloves soaked in sweat and blood. But inside, she knew the actual moment had yet to come. That moment would be when she pulled back the hood, revealing her face to the roaring crowd and millions watching live. She turned her eyes toward Victor, slumped against the ropes, trembling with dread. Layla knew. The fight had only just begun. The roar inside Palau Sant Jordi thundered like a storm. Tens of thousands rose to their feet, screaming, clapping. "The ghost! The ghost!" The name echoed through the arena like an unexpected hymn. Layla stood in the center of the ring, chest heaving, heart pounding. The black robe still cloaked her, hiding her face. In the referee's hand, her victory was declared by unanimous decision. Victor Moretti, the undefeated king, had fallen to a nobody. But Layla knew this victory was only half the battle. The other half was the truth she carried. Victor slumped in his corner, face smeared with blood, eyes blazing with rage and panic. He had never lost, never been humiliated before the public. Cameras aimed at him from every direction. Friends and allies in the VIP seats sat stunned. Some slipped quietly away. He roared, voice hoarse, "Coward! You're just a clown. Nobody thinks beating me changes anything. Layla turned, stepping back into the center of the ring. The referee moved to raise her hand again, but she held up her palm, signaling stop. She motioned for a microphone. The arena hushed at once, thousands of eyes fixed on the ghost. Her voice rang out, low but steady. I did not come here only to win. I came to reveal the truth. Victor Moretti buried 20 years ago. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A commentator stammered, What? What is happening? Slowly, Layla lifted her hands and pulled back the hood. Black hair spilled out, her face illuminated under the blazing lights. A wave of shouts erupted. A female reporter screamed, My God, it's Layla El-Sayeed, daughter of Amina El-Sayeed, the scandal from 20 years ago. Victor froze, his face drained white, eyes wide as if he'd seen a ghost in the flesh. Layla met his gaze, her voice trembling yet strong. Victor Moretti, do you remember a young Egyptian woman named Amina El-Sayeed? 20 years ago, you promised to protect her, but you betrayed her, framed her for theft, and left her life in ruins. And me, the child you tried to erase, am the one who defeated you tonight. The arena exploded with noise. Fans leapt to their feet, journalists shouted into cameras, flashes strobed like lightning. Victor staggered upright, screaming, Lies. All lies. She's insane, trying to destroy me. Layla raised her mother's worn leather journal, shaking under the lights. This is my mother's diary. Proof of your betrayal. Proof of the truth you feared most. And tonight, before the world, you cannot run from it. The audience roared in fury. That bastard ruined an innocent woman. We worshipped him for years. Reporters rushed from their seats, phones pressed to their ears. Dig up the 2001 case. The maid accused of theft, verify it now. Victor swayed, lips trembling. He looked toward Marcus Varga at ringside. But for the first time, Marcus did not move to help. He only shook his head, turned, and walked away. Layla continued, her voice steel. I did not come here to claim a father. I came to claim justice for my mother and all who were crushed by power. Victor Moretti can buy media and lawyers, but he cannot buy my fists. And tonight, justice was served. The arena erupted cheers for her, boos for him. Broadcast live worldwide, the cameras captured Victor Moretti bloodied, shaking, stripped bare before the truth. Layla lifted her chin, eyes blazing. She was no longer the ghost. She was Layla El-Sayeed, the daughter who rose to challenge the darkness. Amina wept in the crowd, burying her face in her hands, tears of pain and pride. She whispered, My daughter, you've done it at last. Diego, behind her, eyes shining, chest swelling with pride, whispered into the storm, You've won not just this fight, but your fate. Victor staggered, trying one last cry, You think you've won? I still have power. I still have money. I'll destroy you and your mother again. Layla strode forward, eyes fierce. You destroyed us once, but tonight you have nothing left to hide behind. The light has stripped you bare. You've lost not to me, but to the truth itself. Victor stumbled back, legs trembling, mouth gaping, unable to answer. The arena drowned him in a wave of outrage. That very night, social media exploded. Hashtags The Ghost, Layla El-Sayeed, and Victor Scandal shot to the top worldwide. Headlines screamed, Businessman Victor Moretti accused of betrayal and framing ex-girlfriend 2 decades ago. Images went viral. Victor triumphant in old fights beside Victor, bloodied and broken, exposed by his daughter. Tweets surged, Justice may be late, but it never dies. A woman destroyed by lies. 20 years later, her daughter stood tall. This is real power. In the locker room, Layla embraced her mother, both sobbing uncontrollably. Diego stood beside them, hand on their shoulders. Helena watched silently, her old eyes glowing with pride. Layla whispered into Amina's ear, Mother, we don't have to hide anymore. The world knows the truth. We've won. Amina nodded, tears streaming. My daughter, you are my greatest pride. Elsewhere, Victor was swarmed by reporters as security dragged him out. Do you deny the diary? Did you force Amina to end her pregnancy? Will you resign from the Moretti Group? He bowed his head, face twisted with rage and despair. Once a symbol, he was now a disgraced man unmasked before the world. Leaving Palau Sant Jordi that night, Layla lifted her face to Barcelona's star-filled sky. Her heart felt heavy, yet freed. The fight had ended, but the actual battle, her mother's justice, had finally been won. Diego took her hand, whispering, "You're no longer a ghost, Layla. You are the light." Through her tears, she smiled. And that light will never go out. The morning after the fight, every Spanish newspaper blazed with one name: Layla El-Sayeed. Headlines screamed, "Victor Moretti's denied daughter defeats him in the ring. 20-year secret exposed. 2001 framing case reopened. Justice delivered through the fists of the ghost." Social media was flooded with the viral moment Layla pulled back her hood, unmasking Victor. The clip spread millions of times with the same caption, "No longer a ghost. This is the truth." Amina sat by the window in the small Raval apartment, dark circles under her eyes from a sleepless night. But for the first time in 20 years, her chest felt light. In her youth, she dreamed of a day when someone would believe her she was not a thief. She never thought that dream would come true until her daughter stood in the arena and screamed the truth for her. Layla sat beside her, taking her hand. "Mother, the world knows now. You don't have to bow your head anymore." Tears streamed down Amina's cheeks, but they were tears of release. "You've given me something I thought I'd never have back, my honor." Meanwhile, Victor Moretti plunged into freefall. Within days, his company's stock collapsed, and contracts were cancelled en masse. The board convened an emergency session, stripping him of power. Journalists unearthed long-buried scandals, hidden debts, construction fraud, and most damning, the 2001 police file tied to Amina El-Sayeed. A prosecutor announced the case would be reopened. Images of Victor leaving his office, surrounded by reporters, face ashen, became the symbol of downfall. Once dubbed the warrior CEO, he was now mocked as the coward CEO. La Furia Academy became the city's new focus. Reporters flocked to interview Helena and Diego. Layla was hailed as Barcelona's new symbol of justice. Helena replied curtly, "I didn't train her for revenge. I trained her to find herself. If justice happened along the way, that's the reward it deserved." When asked, Diego looked straight into the camera. "Layla is the strongest person I've ever known. But her true strength isn't in her fists, it's in her heart." On a quiet night after the storm, Layla and Diego sat on the academy's rooftop, watching Barcelona glitter below. "You did it," Diego said, voice husky. Layla smiled wearily. "We did it. Without you, I'd have fallen long ago." He turned, taking her hand. "Layla, I don't want to be just your trainer anymore. I want to walk with you not just in the ring, but in every step to come." Her heart pounded. Looking into his amber eyes, she saw fire and a lifetime's promise. She nodded, whispering, "I want that too." Under the stars, they kissed, not hesitant, but full, sealing a new beginning. A month later, the court reopened the 2001 case. Amina entered with calm dignity, her eyes shining. The truth was undeniable when the diary, witness accounts, and documents were presented. The judge declared, "Amina El-Sayeed is innocent. All past accusations were fabricated with malicious intent." Applause erupted. Amina broke down in tears as Layla held her tightly. 20 years of shame dissolved in a single sentence. That autumn, in a small seaside church in Sitges, Layla and Diego Wednesday. It was no grand affair, just a few dozen close friends. Helena, Amina, and fellow fighters. Sea winds whispered through, waves blended with Spanish guitar. Layla walked the aisle beside her mother in a simple white dress. Amina beamed, her eyes glistening. At the altar, Diego waited in a modest suit, gaze fixed on her. Taking her hands, he said, "I promise to love you not only as my wife, but as my partner, warrior, and soul's companion." Layla's voice trembled with joy. "And I promise to love you not only as my husband, but as my anchor, the light that will guide me through every shadow." Their kiss sealed it, as cheers and sea winds lifted Layla's hair. In that instant, she knew she was truly free. Months later, news broke. Victor Moretti was officially sentenced to prison for fraud and abuse of power. The once praised man was now nothing more than a convict in uniform. Layla, Diego, and Amina watched the report together. This time, none felt the need to celebrate. True victory wasn't Victor's fall, it was their freedom from his shadow. Amina smiled softly. Justice may come late, but when it comes, it lasts forever. Layla squeezed her hand. Now we can begin again. Layla and Diego opened a small boxing school in a poor neighborhood that winter. On the wall hung a banner, "Justice begins with the strength inside." Children rushed in, laughing as they trained. Watching them, Layla saw herself from 20 years ago, a voiceless girl, hidden under power's shadow. Now, she could give them another path. Diego slipped an arm around her shoulders. "We've come far," Layla smiled, "and the future is still ahead." On New Year's Eve, they stood on their balcony as fireworks burst above Barcelona. Layla whispered, "Mother, we survived the darkness. Now, we have light." Amina embraced her daughter, voice choked. "My girl, you've turned pain into triumph." Diego squeezed Layla's hand, murmuring in her ear, "And you've turned my heart into home." Layla rested her head on his shoulder, eyes lifted to the sky. At that moment, she knew justice was toppling the cruel and building a new life filled with love, freedom, and hope. And so the story closed, though Layla El-Sayeed's journey had only begun. She had risen from a denied ghost as a symbol of strength and justice. And above all, she had learned that the most incredible power lies not in fists, but in love and truth.